The internet is filled with people who get offended over the smallest things, and typically when it comes to video games, it's women. There are snowflakes out there who accuse developers of being sexists or objectifying women simply because they happen to put an attractive character in their video games, and then gamers who defend them are called gooners, and that exact situation is happening with Tides of Annihilation now. But before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, this is a game that was only announced a few days ago, and so far the reception has been super positive. If you haven't heard of it, they showed it off at the PlayStation State of Play, but it is an action game that fuses modern-day London with Arthurian legend. It is a new action game that fuses these two things, and while that sounds distinctly British, it actually comes from Chinese developer Eclipse Glow Games and will sit neatly alongside the likes of Asian action games like Lost Soul Aside, Stellar Blade, Phantom Blade Zero, and Black Myth Wukong. All amazing games, or games that look like they are going to be amazing. Stellar Blade and Wukong were awesome. Lost Soul Aside looks like it's going to be really cool, and I think that when Phantom Blade Zero finally comes out in 2026, if they actually hit their goal, it will be Game of the Year, or at least a contender. But this is a game that merges an Elden Ring-esque fantasy aesthetic with the present-day British capital, where the protagonist Gwendolyn can summon spectral knights of the Round Table. This looks absolutely badass, and my first impression was this is what Forspoken should have been, because they had constantly talked about how it was going to be this epic fantasy game with lots of magic and flawless action combat, and it really was a letdown in every way, shape, and form. And well, this game doesn't appear like that's going to be the case, at least based off of these initial teasers and trailers and gameplay demos that we've gotten. It looks super cool, and one element that people are praising is the lead female Gwendolyn. She is an absolute stunner. All of the women that were highlighted in this look like absolute babes, and that is such a good thing to see. I mean, we have a character who is fully clothed, fully armored here, and if you actually are praising these characters, you're being called a gooner, of course, because we can't have strong and attractive female characters in fiction anymore, according to these people, which is just wild to me. I want to see heightened reality. I don't want to see an average person summoning Knights of the Round Table. I want to see an absolute stunning woman or a very hunky masculine man, if that was the direction that they would have went with. And they, of course, have delivered when it comes to character designs. And over the past couple of years, we've definitely seen that these are the way that developers should go, not in the direction of the Concords or the Flintlock Sieges of Dawns or the Forspokens. No, they need to prioritize really good-looking characters that also are strong, because it is very good marketing material. Haley Era had made this post saying, of course it'd be Chinese developers making better looking white women than Western devs. Tides of Annihilation feels like a throwback to the 2000s, beautiful characters, an intriguing story, and solid gameplay. This really does remind me a lot of Final Fantasy 16. That was my game of the year in 2023. I absolutely loved it, and I think it is fantastic, but this feels very similar, which is not a bad thing in my opinion, and it does seem like it's going to be a very high quality, action-packed experience based on what we've seen so far. I mean, again, of course, don't judge a game until it actually comes out and we've seen more of it and we can get our hands on it, but it's very promising. And in response to her very simple post, somebody responded with, aka gooner material for incels like you. Not like I have a problem with the design since they are good, but we all know why people like you make these types of tweets. All she is doing is saying that this game looks really cool, and she happens to bring up the fact that there are attractive female characters in this game. That is absolutely mind-blowing, that we have gotten to the point where instead of just assuming, oh, she's a sexy and a strong woman that the developers happen to put in this game because it's the visual direction they wanted to go with, oh, people's minds go straight to, it was just gooner material and it worked on you and they've got you hook, line, and sinker. People can praise the game games and the content that they want, and you don't have to look at it if it really bothers you all that badly. Isn't that the mentality with people like this? Oh no, you happen to have a character you like in a video game that you want to highlight, and suddenly that's wrong? That is absolutely mind blowing. And of course, she wrecked this person, verbally, of course. We're now at the point where even fully clothed women are being insultingly referred to as gooner material. This little bitch thinks that complimenting the character designs in the game means we want to wank over them. Only an incel who likes tasting the stains of his grandma would actually say something so utterly ridiculous. It doesn't matter if a woman is dressed modestly or wearing something more revealing. These people will always reduce women to mere wank material, projecting their own sick and twisted views on to others. Yeah, I will never get behind the mentality of accusing someone of being something because they simply like a certain character design. I mean, again, we don't have a lot of information on this game. We have seen teasers and trailers, 11 minutes of gameplay, which is fantastic, especially when we didn't know of this game's existence before a handful of days ago. But the reason why companies release material like this is to judge them. Sometimes we react positively, sometimes we react negatively, but they want people talking about their game, and it's not a bad thing when you are doing just that. Permaband had made this post saying, "A lady compliments devs for good designs of female characters, all clothed and armored. In comes Roberto accusing the OP of being a gooner despite characters being clothed, and later gets caught posting sus pics and comments about women. If you are going to talk shit, you have to have an impenetrable defense." And in this case, he looks even worse because he's not commenting on fictional characters, he is commenting on real, living, breathing human beings. So you are a much worse person than us if we are suddenly bad for complimenting fictional characters and these developers' designs. There are tons of people, though, who are pointing and laughing at this individual and mocking them ruthlessly for, again, shaming a woman who is simply appreciating beauty in video games. We also have people saying it's woke because it's a female protagonist. I haven't really seen this, but this is an absurd claim to make. I remember when Zelda Echoes of Wisdom was coming out, and there were some people trying to say that it was woke because it had a female, which is absurd. We're talking about Zelda here, and it's not like Link was fully replaced either. Link was within the game. It just happened to be a story where she did help him out. Again, she didn't, fully save the day by any means, but it was just a very cute, wholesome spin-off, and I thought it was a really fantastic game. One of my favorites of 2024, actually. But no, just because something has a female doesn't mean it's woke. Not to speak for everyone, but it's hard to imagine that unless you're doing it as a joke that anyone wants to play as an ugly character on purpose. Yeah, I would generally agree. There are times where characters are written to be ugly and it has to do with their story, like Brienne of Tarth. She was not supposed to be a beauty. She was supposed to be pretty masculine and pretty ugly, and they did pick a gorgeous actress to play her in the show, but in the books, she was supposed to be super, super ugly, and that was part of her character's arc. That was part of her character, and that was perfectly fine. It does make sense and it can be done, but generally, yeah, people do not want to play as super ugly characters unless they're memeing on it or it's got a actual purpose. So yes, Tides of Annihilation is an upcoming game that in my opinion looks very similar to something like Final Fantasy 16 and even Black Desert Online, and I think that it does look really great. I'm personally loving what I'm seeing so far, and this is one of my most anticipated games that I saw coming out of the Sony State of Play. So I will be keeping my eye on this title going forward, but so far things are looking really good for it. But if you praise this character design and you praise these developers for daring to put attractive characters in their game, just be warned, you're going to be called a gooner. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.